Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brian Brindley again here for the Games We Play podcast, where we break down the biggest news and events going on in the world of sports this week. Unfortunately, yesterday I was not able to record. I usually record and publish these on Thursdays, but yesterday I got a little busy, and so today we're going to do the podcast. We're going to talk about the NFL again. Obviously, NFL season is in full swing. That's where my interest lies, so let's talk about it. So let's talk about Week 1 before we dive into Week 2. Week 1. I learned quite a few things, I think, actually, and I know that Week 1 is very often a wash, and you don't know exactly what you're getting into when you're talking about Week 1 in the NFL, but from the games that I got to see, and from everything I've read about Week 1 that I didn't get to see, I think I have a pretty good idea about a few things going into this, mainly 4 things that I learned. The first thing that I learned has to do with Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. I was able to watch the game. I was watching it side by side with the Seahawks-Bengals game on Sunday afternoon, and it wasn't that interesting until the third and fourth quarter. As most of you guys know, the game ended in a tie after going to overtime, but the way that they got there was the most interesting part. Kyler Murray really proved himself, I think, in a sense. He was terrible for the first 3 quarters, below average. Even for like a rookie in their first game, he did really bad. I don't think it's completely his fault. That offensive line is atrocious. I actually went over game film for my internship. I was asked to do a little bit of a segment on what I thought about the game in like a mock segment. And the thing I noticed is the offensive line is so inconsistent in that even when one side of the line actually is able to hold up, the other side consistently falls apart at each turn. Like, it literally was either the entire offensive line was falling apart on a pass play, the left side was falling apart, or the right side was falling apart. There was never a play that I saw, and even all the highlights where things went right. I think there was 3 plays where the pocket consistently held up for more than 3.5 seconds, which is, it doesn't bode well for him, obviously. I really hope that they fix it. I would actually, for them, I know that usually you want your left tackle, your blindside tackle, to be the guy that you put the most money and the work in. But for Kyler's purposes, I think that it's too far gone at this point to have a consistently good left tackle on the team. So what I think they need to do is shore up that right side, because when he rolls to the right. From what I saw on film, he'll roll to the right. And I think if they can get that right side of the line playing consistently, even if the play kind of breaks down on the left side and he has to bail to the right side, I feel like you have more of a chance of success than if the right side's breaking down and you're rolling to your left and you're throwing going this way instead of throwing with the weight of your body. And especially with Kyler Murray being a baseball player, that's more of a natural throwing motion for a baseball player, which leads me into the thing that I thought was most interesting. Before the NFL draft this year, Kyler Murray's main comp in the NFL was Russell Wilson. A lot of people said that that was a little presumptuous, just because they are both of short stature, they both put up great numbers in college, and they both played baseball. That was just kind of like the main comps. But when you really look at their game, especially after watching him in his first NFL game, and full disclosure, I grew up a Seattle Seahawks fan, so I've been watching Russell Wilson since he came into the NFL. I saw a lot of similar things. The main difference between the two, and people are going to be like, well, Russell Wilson did this in his first couple of years. Kyler Murray will not reach the heights that Russell Wilson did in his first 2 years. I can pretty confidently say that right now. Russell Wilson went into a better system, had a better coach going into the NFL. He had a much better offensive line going into the NFL. He had much better skills players around him, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, much more reliable team. But where they are very similar is in their mentality. So, for example, there's the infamous play in the Super Bowl where Russell Wilson throws an interception to Malcolm Butler. It was tragic for Seattle fans. It was elating for Patriots fans. But what always interested me about Russell Wilson's reaction to that play is he was upset, but not visibly upset. Obviously you're upset. You just threw a game-ending interception in the Super Bowl. Your team was set to go back-to-back Super Bowls, which is insane. But you don't end up getting the job done. And that's disappointing, right? And I think almost any other quarterback in the league would live with that. They'd have to internalize that and be like, that's and you would see it in their play. I've seen it before, not necessarily in that same situation, but a quarterback make a significant mistake, and they live trying to make up for it every single play after that. Even if it's not apparent every single play, it builds into your psyche, especially coming from an athletic background. When you make a massive mistake like that, it can really affect you. Where I think that Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are similar is in their mentality. Kyler Murray had a terrible game for 3 quarters. The offense was not clicking whatsoever. Minimal to no success. But Kyler Murray was able, as a rookie in his first NFL game, to continue to stay composed, to not look frustrated. He never looked frustrated to me, which baffled me, because a lot of the stuff that was happening was not his fault. And I think him not being able to see Twitter is a pretty good thing, because people on Twitter were really giving it to him like it's his fault when it really isn't. I think that Cardinals fans rightfully are very skeptical of Kyler Murray because they bailed on Josh Rosen so fast. I know there's people that I know that are Cardinals fans that are like that, and that's completely justified. I'm somewhat sympathetic to that. But I even saw in that fourth quarter and overtime that Kyler Murray started to turn heads a little bit. And I think where him and Russell Wilson are similar is in their baseball background. I think it actually affects this. In baseball, you fail way more than you succeed. Even if you're a really, really good player, like let's say you bat 344. That's really, really good over a season in the MLB. You bat 344. That means that you are getting out over half the time that you go up to the plate. So you kind of have to learn that you're mostly going to fail and you're going to succeed sometimes. I think where Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are super interesting as quarterbacks is I can see that mentality and that building up over the years of playing baseball for a majority of their lives, that affects the way that they play football. Because when they make mistakes, in my opinion, what I see when they're making those mistakes is they're like, well, failures come with successes. Obviously in football it's much less so. You're normally supposed to succeed more than you fail in football, unlike in baseball. But I think just having that background with you helps you internalize and be like, look, that's a mistake, I'll get another chance. That's a mistake, I'll get another chance. And that's where I think that it really affects them. You could tell in their maturity, you could tell by how, just by the way that they're composed even after they make a mistake. Throw an interception, okay, on to the next one. Not getting on teammates, not getting on themselves, not pouting on the sideline. It's on to the next play, on to the next at-bat, on to the next this. I really love the way that Kyler Murray is shaping up as an attitude, as a presence in that locker room. I think he can be a great leader. I also think what benefits him is, unlike Russell Wilson, where he came into a team with a bunch of vocal guys. Richard Sherman's a vocal guy. Earl Thomas is a vocal guy. Michael Bennett's a vocal guy. Those were always the leaders, I felt, on those Super Bowl teams. The defense was obviously what carried the Seattle Seahawks to the Super Bowl the first time around, and the second time around, since they had been there before by the defense, even though the offense contributed more in that second season, it still felt like the defensive stars were the leaders of the team. Kyler Murray is in an interesting time where he is the face that's coming to really turn around the franchise, whereas I think in Seattle it was the defense and Pete Carroll were the face of that turnaround. Especially with a guy like Larry Fitzgerald, who is obviously, as we've talked about on the show before, a stand-up guy. He is one of the best receivers to ever play the game, and he is beloved in Arizona. For him to give as much praise to Kyler as he has in the past 2 weeks lets me know that Kyler Murray has some special something in him. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I think they're going to get absolutely clobbered this weekend when they play Baltimore. But overall, I was very impressed with what I saw from Kyler Murray. Even if it wasn't the most great, even if it wasn't the best performance on paper when you're looking at the whole game, context matters. And what I saw in the fourth quarter and in overtime made me very excited for what's going to happen with him and the Arizona Cardinals. I think that if they build around him and if they continue to follow Cliff's blueprint, I think that they can be a really successful team in about 3 to 4 years. So that's the first lesson that I learned. The second lesson I learned from the NFL season is that Cleveland Browns offensive line is god awful. And I mean, like, we kind of knew going into the season that this wasn't going to be the best, but it is bad, guys. Baker sacked 5 times, blitzed 10 times. And when that happens, you see Baker panic. And what was Baker's main thing coming out of college? What was like his main touting point where people were like, this is what I like? His accuracy. that is going to be majorly affected if he has skittishness in the pocket, if he does not trust his offensive line, if he has to rush throws and players are not able to go all the way through their routes. Your accuracy is going to fall. His confidence might be shaken. Receivers will stop getting the amount of touches that they need. And as we know, the skill personnel on that team is a powder keg ready to explode without success. So I think what showed was immaturity by the Browns. I think the penalties were clear and indicative of that. But their main issue is going to be that offensive line. And I'm sure right now they are out there looking. They're trying to find a solution. I hope that they can find it because I would actually really, really love to see the Browns succeed. But it's actually it's going to be pretty difficult for them to fix that offensive line. Even though we knew it was going to be the Achilles heel of that team, it's really, really looking bad. So we'll see how they do this weekend. And I'll let you know. They have a pretty easy game this weekend. We'll get to that in a minute. But so I have two more things here. We'll just go quick through them so that I can get in this a little bit of shorter episode. The Dolphins are a mess, clearly tanking. They might actually not win a single game this year, especially because they play the Patriots early in the year. They play them actually this weekend, and that game is in Miami early. So that's usually the game the Patriots drop for whatever reason. But this year, I just can't even see. I can't even see if the Patriots sit half their team that they lose to this team because they're clearly purposely losing. And shout out my man Brady because he's a Dolphins fan and he is probably a very miserable person right now, but he's a great guy and a great journalist. Preseason matters more than we want to admit. That's the last point I'm going to make. I think the Bears and Packers game was indicative of that on Thursday night last week. And I know that they're talking about changing the NFL schedule. There's going to be either more regular season games or they're just switching up in some way. They're making it different. I understand what they're trying to do, but I think that the important thing is going to be those early games matter and those early practices matter. I think that's going to become more apparent, especially in this week when you'll see what teams can adjust, what teams are conditioned and able to recover from a game the week before. But yeah, preseason matters. Early season training matters. It's not a joke. Don't blow it off. All right, and so next topic is going to be my week 2 pick. So last week, I picked every single NFL game heading into the week. My record ended up being 9-6. There was obviously the tie, so I just dropped it between Arizona and Detroit. So 9-6 if you want to give me a win for that. 10-6 if you want me to give me a loss for that. 9-7. But either way, winning record. So pretty good, I think, for week 1, which is usually a crapshoot. But now this week, we're going to make the picks again. I'm going to keep track of my record throughout the entire year. Hopefully I end up with a winning record and a pretty resounding winning record. But we'll see. You never know. We'll see how well I keep up and everything like that. So let's go ahead and, before we start, I'm recording this on Friday, like I said at the beginning of the episode, so the Panthers and Buccaneers game already happened. Buccaneers won. I'm not going to pick that game, so that game is just completely X-made from this predictions list. First game that we're going to pick, Cardinals at the Ravens, and like I said earlier in the podcast, Ravens win this game. Ravens are at home. Offense looked dominant against Miami, who, yeah, they're tanking, but like even against a team that's tanking, that score was ridiculous. And I think the Cardinals are playing their first road game. Kyler Murray will probably have consistent struggles again that will, I think, persist throughout the game this time, playing a defense that has a great leader in Earl Thomas this time. I think that the Ravens will win this game by probably 2 or 3 touchdowns. Chargers go to Detroit, and I think the Chargers win this game. Look, from what I saw from the Lions, their defense looked pretty good for the first 3 quarters against the Cardinals. They might have been a little bit tired at the end of the game, and that's why they started slipping up a little bit. They started playing a lot more prevent, so the Cardinals were able to get a lot more, shorter gains that ended up adding up and getting them into position to score late in the game. But I just think that the Chargers, especially in their division, are going to try to win as many games as early on as they can because obviously it came down to the wire last year between them and the Chiefs. They were both really, really good, and they want that division win spot. They don't want that wild card spot. So I think the Chargers will go into Detroit and they will win. I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think. I would probably say that the Chargers will win by probably 8 points. Colts go to Tennessee. I'm going to pick the Indianapolis Colts in this game. Lost in a heartbreaker Almost comeback to the Chargers last week. The Titans obviously beat down the Browns. I just don't trust the Titans. It's unfortunate, but I just don't. Marcus Mariota is a very serviceable quarterback that is at risk for injury any time that the ball is snapped. They have Ryan Tannehill as their backup in Tennessee, so even if Mariota gets out, they have another mid to serviceable quarterback. But I just think that the Colts have the better roster. I think that the Colts are going to be coming off of the energy of that almost comeback against the Chargers, and especially in a division game, I think that they'll take us. It'll be close. I'm going to take the Colts by a touchdown. 49ers go to Cincinnati. So I got a pretty in-depth look at the Cincinnati Bengals last week because it was the main game I was watching as they played the Seahawks. The Bengals are looking pretty good. I'm not saying that the Seahawks are like this great team. Seahawks secondary is definitely missing a lot. It leaves a lot to be desired. That defensive front, the front seven is really good, obviously, in Seattle, but that secondary is a little on the weak side, and honestly, the Bengals took advantage of it. Andy Dalton looked really good. John Ross had the breakout performance of the week, and I think that nobody is talking about it, which is weird. He had something like 200 and something yards last year entirely combined, and he had like 130 or 140 last week. Ridiculous. So, why am I picking the 49ers? Because I think that the 49ers are going to go into this game off of the energy of winning their last game. They won against the Buccaneers last week. And I think that this is going to be a really good proving ground for Jimmy Garoppolo. That front seven for the 49ers is also really good. I think their DBs are better than Seattle, so I think that they'll be able to cover John Ross a little bit better. And I think that Andy Dalton is a exposable quarterback is how I would describe him. I'm picking the 49ers, not by much. I'd pick them by a field goal. This is going to be a really close game, I think. I think both of these teams are around the same level, to tell you the truth. I just think that Jimmy Garoppolo has more to prove in this game than Andy Dalton has to prove in this game. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. Picking the Texans at home. Jacksonville, Jacksonville's at where they're at. Nick Foles is hurt, out for the season. Gardner Minshew, though, he's looking like the breakout celebrity star quarterback of the season. He just is a weird personality. I encourage you guys to please Google his name and find out as much as you can about him. But the Texans, I think, are going to come out hot off the heels of, I believe, they won against the Panthers last week, right? Let's just go ahead and double check that. They lost to the Saints. I apologize. So they lost to the Saints last week in a heartbreaker. That was a heartbreaking game to watch. I'm not even going to lie. I like both teams. Love Drew Brees. Love Deshaun Watson. Heartbreaking game to watch. Come out bitter after that loss. And Jacksonville is just... Their quarterback, Gardner Minshew. He's out of Washington State. Got a pretty good arm. But I'm just picking Deshaun Watson because they're at home. Still got J.J. Watt on that defensive line. And I think that offense is just going to be able to handle the Saints' defense. So, that's my pick. Vikings go to Green Bay to play the Packers. I'm picking the Packers at home. I think that Aaron Rodgers will have a much better game. I think that why can't I think of his name? Jesus. This is going to hurt me. Packers coach. God. It's what's his name? It's the Matt LaFleur. I wanted to say Matt Nagy, but that's the Bears coach. All the damn Matts. Picking the Packers, I think that offense will click a lot better. That Green Bay defense looks actually pretty legit, and it's the Vikings offense, which is very limited with their quarterback. So I'm picking the Packers at home. I'm going to probably give it like a touchdown. Cowboys going to Washington to play the Redskins. Cowboys are winning that game. I don't think I have to really explain much to myself there. I think it's going to be closer than people think because it's a division game, but I think the Cowboys end up taking it. Seahawks going into Pittsburgh. I'm picking the Steelers, which might surprise some people by them only scoring 3 points against New England on Sunday night, and the Seahawks winning their game against the Bengals last week. But my rationale is watching the Seattle game last week. Their secondary is able to be exposed. They're young. They hustle a lot, but they make a lot of mistakes. And I think that a veteran quarterback that has been in this league for as long as Big Ben has is going to be able to find the seams to be able to make the passes he needs to make for them to be successful. Not saying that Andy Dalton's not a veteran quarterback. He's been in this league for a while, but he's just not the type of caliber quarterback that Ben Roethlisberger is, especially upstairs. So I'm going to pick the Steelers at home. I'm going to have them probably win by a touchdown and a field goal. Bills go to the Giants. The winner is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Look, the Jets, obviously, with the news that they lost Sam Darnold for at least a couple of weeks with mono, I think that the Bills are seeing an opportunity to possibly maybe be able to get a wild card spot in the AFC. They won't get it, just to be clear. I think that Buffalo would be delusional to think so, but when you're an organization like that, why not? Just get your wins where you can. The Giants are clearly trying to figure stuff out. They look like a team that doesn't know what they want to do. They looked god-awful against the Cowboys last week, picking the Bills on the road. And then the Patriots go to Miami. Now, this is normally a pretty, you don't like picking the Patriots going to Miami, but Miami is literally losing on purpose. So I'm picking the Patriots. I'm picking them by 17. That's how confident I am. I know it's a division game. I normally pick those close, but Miami is literally losing on purpose. So there you go. Chiefs at the Raiders. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, even though the Raiders are at home, and the Raiders looked a lot better than I thought they were going to on Monday Night Football last week. I think that Kansas City is just built for more. I think that their offense is capable of being one of the best offenses I've ever seen this year, and I think that they will prove that against the Raiders. Saints go to the Rams. What can I say about this game? It's the rematch of last year's playoff. Just absolute debacle, and I think that the Saints win the game because precisely how the game ended last year. Saints are out for blood. I think that they will show a lot more fire and tenacity against this Rams team than they showed against the Texans, and I would say it's going to be close. I think this is going to be a great game. This is my game to watch for the week, and I think that the Saints will win by a field goal. The Chicago Bears go to Denver to play the Broncos, and I'm picking the Bears in this game. Denver looked about where I thought they were going to be on Monday night against the Raiders. They lost to them, obviously, but I think that the Bears are coming off of that obviously awful offensive performance against Green Bay, and I think that they're going to try, especially Matt Nagy, an offensive-minded coach like Matt Nagy is going to be out to prove that he is able to score as many points as he wants to, and I think he's going to make it a point to make that offense pop a little bit more against Denver than he did against Green Bay. Denver does have a pretty decent defense, especially those guys on the front line. So we'll see how it ends up shaking out. I'd say it's probably going to be close. Maybe a field goal separates the two, but I'm picking the Bears. Eagles go to the Falcons, and I'm going to pick the Falcons at home. I thought the Eagles looked pretty good in their comeback against the Redskins last week, but I just think that the Falcons being at home are going to try to pick up the W, and I just kind of trust that the Falcons are going to win at home. I usually pick the Falcons at home, and I think that the Eagles are going to have their struggles this year, and I think this is going to be the first one that they have. And then, of course, the Browns play the Jets on Monday Night Football. Picking the Browns. Sam Darnold is out with mono. Le'Veon Bell is going to be playing, which was uncertain for a bit there, but he's going to be playing. He'll probably get his on the ground, but I just think that the Browns, coming hot off that terrible-looking loss to Tennessee, are going to be out for vengeance. I think that since the Jets don't have their starting quarterback, that they're going to look weak, and I'm going to pick the Browns in that game. So there you have it. Those are my picks for week 2. Let me know who you guys are picking for week 2 or what you think of my picks. And that's going to be it for me this week. Go ahead and right down below, you can subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and like the video as well and share it with your friends if you like it. Any little bit of help helps me, obviously. I appreciate the views. I appreciate you guys listening to me. You guys can always comment and suggest topics for the future and any sort of critiques that you have for the show as well. I will see you guys next week. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Take care.